Hmm? All right, folks. Hey, welcome to yet again another episode of the Three Black Heathens Show. We have our returning guest, Tzur Ben Israel. Please say hi, sir.
Shalom to the family. How everybody else? How you doing?
All right, you got Mr. Nate Brody working the controls. You got me, Dragnot, Silvis. Unfortunately, Imp can't make it today. He has some real life stuff. Yeah, y'all know how it is with a man that important. So
he is getting married. You not gonna let him know you getting married. You like,
man, I want to put all the man business out there. I wanted people to know this man is still out there. He's still knocking him down, but he about to get locked up. So you know what, or locked down, I should say, locked down. I guess it depends on how you look at it. But as a married man, you know what, I welcome the chains, all of them. But we'll talk about that later. We're gonna bust his balls later.
Oh my God. Yo, married is not being so bad. I'm married. You know what I'm saying? I love it. I enjoy married life.
You say that until you can't find the off button, right?
That's true.
You can't find the off button, then it's like, you know what? Did I make a good decision? Maybe not. I love you, dear. She's like 4 feet behind me, getting ready to throw a phone at me. That's all right.
But what are you missing? What with the single life? What are you missing? I got the cow at home. I don't gotta go. I ain't gotta go search and negotiate for the milk. You know what I'm saying?
That's true. But you can get different flavors of milk instead of the same flavor. I mean, it's well. Then again, you could do that while you're married.
I don't know how many different flavors of milk. I'm not going to the. I don't drink chocolate milk too much, but I want regular milk. You know what I'm saying? I will say this: being married is like what? What do they say? It's like having cable with only one channel. That's what it's like, man. It's like, hey, having cable with one channel. I like HBO, but Showtime. Sometimes I want to look a little Showtime. But you can't do that when you're married, though. There is no Showtime. No. Oh man,
you're happy with that lineup.
I think it kind of depends on your wife, though, right? If you have somebody who's fun and knows how to change it up, and she understands what you like, what you need, what's interesting to you, and she capitalizes on that, then it's like having all the channels, right?
She changing it up too much, though. I don't know. So sometimes, especially in this day and age, she might just, come out. She might be wearing the pants. You're like, I want to really change it up. Oh, baby.
No, look, we could skip all that. Just get a check that's bipolar. You'd be good.
Man. No, what is it? What if she has like multiple personalities? Would it be cheating if you slept with like another personality?
I think one personality would get mad over the other. Like, it'd be like, oh, you would sleep with her. Well, y'all in the same body, but that's not me, though.
Yeah, how the hell would I know? How the hell would I know?
She does a thing, she has a speech impediment. Oh, yeah, I forgot. So many of y'all.
I know. I had to tell her, like, yo, I'm cheating on you with yourself and shit.
Becky with the bad hair.
Yeah.
And the stutter. So, well, yeah. So, folks, we're going to discuss. If y'all have not heard, there is a supposed hate crime hoax. It's not unlike the ones in the past that we've heard, but
Oh my
this one's
God.
interesting. This one is involving someone who's actually a celebrity of the show Empire, if you've seen that. This person's name is Jussie Smollett, and supposedly he hired some very close people to himself to commit some racist, homophobic attack and blamed it on some MAGA wearing inbreds. But we're going to explore that a little bit later to
Well,
see.
hold on. Well, hold on. Let's give them a little taste of it, because right now on this right there on the screen they see what is it, Jussie Smollett, and they see that his two attackers are the people he said attacked him. So what you'll see is one of these attackers, as you're seeing on your screen now, actually was an extra in the show, and this is actually him in one of the scenes on the show Empire. So this guy's an extra on the show. So we're going to show you the clip of when the story first came out, what the news reported, and then we're going to see the clip of what the news is reporting, and we want you to see and see if you guys have come to the same conclusion that we've come to, that it seems like this was kind of made up, this was set up. Now, I have no reason, I don't understand none of his motivations, but first let's look at the clips, and then you decide.
All right, judge for yourself, folks. We're just gonna present some stuff, and as this story unfolds, keep your ear to the ground, because there may be another twist. Which I think there are some more twists to this story, because it didn't seem right to me from the beginning. But anyway, so give us a second, folks. We got a few technical difficulties to work out.
Possible hate crime against actor Jussie Smollett are asking the public for help. Smollett is best known for the TV drama Empire. He claims he was attacked on a Chicago street by two men who wrapped a rope around his neck. Dean Reynolds has spoken with officers searching for evidence to back up Smollett's allegations. Dean, good morning.
Good morning. Smollett plays Jamal Lyon on the hit show Empire, which is filmed here at a studio in Chicago. The FBI has also joined this inquiry now, but so far investigators have been unable to release a description of the alleged assailants. Jussie Smollett, who plays a gay musician on the Fox hit show Empire and identifies as gay in real life, says he was beaten by two masked men who shouted racist epithets, gay slurs, and put a noose around his neck. A police dispatcher had the barest of details on the early morning attack, which was reported by Smollett's business manager.
Regarding a friend that was assaulted and battered, he's supposed to be well known. A noose was placed over the friend's neck.
When police got to his apartment, they said a noose was still around Smollett's neck. He told them he was also doused with an unknown chemical, and officers said they smelled bleach on his clothes. In a now deleted Instagram post by Empire co-creator Lee Daniels, Smollett appeared to have an abrasion on his cheek.
You didn't deserve, nor anybody deserves, to have a noose put around your neck, to have bleach thrown on you.
Police say in a subsequent meeting, Smollett added that his assailants referenced President Trump's campaign slogan, "Make America Great Again," during the attack. 12 detectives and a number of FBI agents are now investigating what has been classified as a possible hate crime. But sources say they have seen security video of Smollett outdoors early Tuesday morning and nothing of an assault. Detectives have expanded the search area for video of the alleged assailants, but have not found any footage or witnesses. Smollett's Empire co-star Vivica A. Fox tweeted, "I'm so angry and hurt about this." California Senator Kamala Harris, a 2020 presidential candidate, called the attack an attempted modern-day lynching. In a statement, 20th Century Fox Television and Fox Entertainment said they were deeply saddened and outraged by the despicable act of violence and hate. Yesterday, Smollett went to the hospital, was evaluated, and released. Bianna?
Dean, thank you, and CBS will continue to follow this story.
for hate crimes, you get some serious time. So if that was the story, what do you guys think? Do you guys think, it seems pretty plausible? Two guys, MAGA hats, we hate the gays, and they beat them up. It seems just crazy.
Yeah, it seemed a bit too picturesque. Like if I had to label it something, when a friend of mine first sort of heard of it, it's like, oh man, it just seems like the perfect storm of every racial attack nightmare. They have MAGA hats, they're yelling all the right things, and they have all the right descriptions of people that we would figure that would commit such an act. And so that's what kind of tipped off a friend of mine saying, like, that there may be something amiss here.
You had somebody who predicted this, right? Somebody predicted this.
Oh yeah, friend of mine. Yeah, she said, no, this seems like it was orchestrated because it was too perfect, because everything lined up with that depiction of now what people believe are the ultimate antagonist to our American society. And as it turns out, that hunch seems to be dead on so far.
Hold on. This could, like when I first heard this story, I was like, all right, these are obviously two white guys beating up this black gay guy. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of what just imposed itself upon me, and it shows you my bias. Because when I first heard, I'm like, all right, why would they be wearing, number one, the MAGA hats? Automatically threw myself in the white nationalist land. Okay, these are, what brothers are going to be going around wearing MAGA hats, beating up other brothers? That don't make no sense. You know what I'm saying? So
right.
Just based on what I heard right there, I'm thinking these are some white nationalists who caught themselves somebody at a vulnerable time and beat their ass. So I don't know. I can understand how people are saying it checked all the boxes, but based on what we just heard, I thought it was a believable story. What about you, Tzur?
Yeah, I in hearing it, if that's all the facts we have, like you say, it would seem like that would be something crazy, right? And a crazy atrocity. But I mean, if it's coming that is not, that is some crazy extra spare time, I feel, so but I mean, yeah, I definitely think that is just I don't know, that's one of those things that's kind of very, very crazy to me, that either way it goes, right, that is black brothers, that would go all out like that. That's not necessarily a commonality, something that we know to happen like that in the black community, but that'd be crazy.
Well, I'll say this: how many brothers do you know that wear MAGA hats?
I don't know any. That's one. That's why it just seems.
Oh, you know what?
Yeah, I know one. Jussie Lee Peterson. Yeah.
Oh, but I'm talking about. That's why I mentioned brothers from the hood.
Yeah.
Jussie not from the hood.
No, he getting his ass beat. No. Somebody putting hands on him.
So you know what? So we don't give it away. Let's let people see what the story is right now, because I see the chat is starting to get a little hot with it right now. Chat, hot, calm down. Nobody's gonna go here, so relax, chat. Chat's gotta relax. All right, so let's hear what's going on now. What the police have said now. That was what they said before. This is what they're saying right now.
Well, they find the thickest people to present this.
Stunning new development. Chicago police now trying to figure out if Jussie Smollett was in fact involved in staging the entire thing, possibly even paying for it. But overnight, Smollett's legal team says that's simply not true.
Breaking overnight. A law enforcement source familiar with the investigation tells NBC News that Chicago police are now looking into whether Empire actor Jussie Smollett actually paid two men to fake an attack against him. The Chicago police confirming in a statement that new information has in fact shifted the trajectory of the investigation. Smollett's attorneys furious, saying he has now been further victimized by claims attributed to these alleged perpetrators that Jussie played a role in his own attack. Nothing is further from the truth, and anyone claiming otherwise is lying. The release of grainy surveillance photos from the night of the alleged attack, raising questions that Smollett addressed in an interview with ABC News.
I don't have any doubt in my mind that's them.
Smollett stood by his story, even as the case has faced growing scrutiny.
He said, this MAGA country punches me right in the face. So I punched his back. I noticed the rope around my neck and I started screaming.
That rope, NBC News has learned, was purchased at a hardware store by the two men involved in the alleged attack. The two men are brothers, and Smollett follows their shared Instagram account. Smollett's attorneys stating one of these purported suspects was Jussie's personal trainer. It is impossible to believe that this person could have played a role in the crime or would falsely claim Jussie's complicity. Police say that upon searching the brothers' home, investigators found a black ski mask, bottles of bleach, and an Empire script. Police sources telling NBC one of the men worked as an extra on the TV show. A police source tells NBC News investigators have no clear motive as to why Smollett would concoct the story, which he has described in detail.
You do such a disservice when you lie about things like this.
A law enforcement source tells NBC News that those two brothers, who are no longer suspects, have agreed to fully cooperate with Chicago police. Now, Smollett and his attorneys say the actor will continue to cooperate, but will not respond to unnamed sources inside of that investigation. Now, law enforcement officials say they're seeking a follow-up interview with the Empire star.
Damn, kid.
Well, you know, sometimes I forget how my personal trainer looks too, especially when it's dark and we're not in the gym. You know,
and they hit that motherfucker wearing a MAGA hat too. You know, like, damn, what you do in your off time? You know, you fucking wearing a MAGA hat, running around the streets, beating up gays. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, and look, he has to deal with gays, you know, in his job, but in his free time, he goes around telling people this is MAGA country. You know, it's what he likes to do. You know, shame people for what they do.
Let's think about this stuff. We got an immigrant, a black immigrant from Nigeria wearing a MAGA hat.
Yeah.
This is crazy. This is insane. Oh my God. So let's just take a quick vote. Who thinks this shit is now made up? Now, I'm gonna right now my bullshit meter's on high. Like, I think this is a made up story. I think my man, you know, the brothers are saying they paid for, you know, they got paid like $3,500 to do this, and on top of that, supposedly, the police have like some evidence of, you know, receipts and some, you know, it's not looking good for poor Jussie. First, you know, he could pick him out of a lineup, not knowing that he's following them on Instagram, and this is the motherfucking personal trainer. You know, of course you can pick him out of a lineup. You know the motherfuckers. You know what I'm saying? So, right. It seems to be. If you're asking me my opinion, if I'm on the jury right now, it's not guilty for those two brothers, because, you know, they was paid. Jussie, this is a made-up story, and your ass is in trouble.
For me, I'm gonna have to go man. Like, it's crazy. It's a coincidence that you recognize the dudes that attacked you, but you also, you know, paying them for you know, being your personal trainer. Like, you didn't recognize their voice offhand and go, oh yeah, I know who this dude is.
He said he could pick him out of a lineup. He said, I could pick the dudes who attacked me out of a lineup. You wouldn't know, like, that's, oh, you know how I can pick him out of a lineup? Because that's my personal trainer. If you can pick him out of a lineup, that should be, you know, my personal trainer. I follow him on Instagram.
Right, but if it's somebody you normally deal with, you know, like, it's still like, even like if I wanted to believe this bullshit, right? You can tell most folks by their voice. Now, I know not everyone has a fairly unique voice like me, but like, if it's your personal trainer, you know what he sounds like. And I guess I gotta commend my dude for sticking to his story. But like, it's no, man. Like, just cop to it.
He said he could pick the guys out of a lineup. He said that is them. You don't know that's your personal trainer. You know, it's like my man Zerb starts beating me up. I'm like, yo, I can pick him out of a lineup. They're like, you don't know you did 2 shows with this motherfucker. You could just tell us that. We got to send people out there looking at video cameras. No, these are the guys. They were on the show. They're from Empire. Here's his picture. Exactly. He did this scene.
Yeah, I think I agree. I feel like they worked together. And I mean, he wasn't extra, so it's not like but still, I think you would have kind of, I agree with you. It just seemed like, you would know, and if he was his personal trainer, you know your personal trainer's voice. I would think that he's always constantly in your ear. You can do it. 2 more reps, right? So I can't see. I don't know. That it seems very, very far-fetched. It seems very, very far-fetched. That's all I can say. I don't know, man.
Well, listen, in the live chat, press 1 if you think this is like if you still believe this guy is innocent. I mean, I'm sorry. If you believe this story was not made up, if you think this story was real, put 1 in the chat. If you think this story was bullshit,
if you believe Smollett,
1. But if you don't believe Smollett, if you believe his story is lies, 2. Or you know what? Put anything but 1. All right. Most people are putting 1 right now. Most people are putting 1. They believe the story. They believe.
Press
the story.
3 if you want to send Dragnot some money for some Wingstop tonight.
Yeah, I think everybody believes the story is now bullshit. So now, but what do you do now? Like, this destroys your career. This destroys your fucking career. Everybody believes it's bullshit.
I could tell you, he can go work for what's it? InfoWars. Yeah, there you go. Go work for InfoWars. Because now you think about it, you know, that confirms some of the like the false flags, some of that stuff that the guy says, Alex Jones. There you go.
Oh man, this is sad. Now, this is what we was asking each other before. Does this hurt the cause? Does this hurt the fucking cause? No, Jay, I said most people are putting 1. I was just joking. Obviously, no sane person put 1 except for you. You put 1, but most people put 2. So I'm sorry. So my question to you, gentlemen, on the panel: does this hurt the cause? Does this hurt the goddamn cause?
Well, it definitely is gonna pull away from it, right? I would say yeah. Now, I don't necessarily agree with all the causes.
Of course, yeah.
But it definitely, it's gonna now be something they can go to and say, nah, you see, y'all BS all the time. So yeah, pretty much.
It's gonna make people think that this is not real. But Drag, what do you think? You think it's gonna hurt the cause?
Yeah. I think this. I think we were talking about this in the chat earlier today, and Ozzy let us know about this website. It was it hoax can or
fake
hoax,
fake
hoax,
like no fake fake something crimes.
Fake hate crime.org. I think it was.
Yeah,
that's what it was. Yeah. So and it just reminded me, I was like, there was she might have been a UNC student or something like that last year at the height of, you know, a lot of this drama that's going on in the you know, mediascape, where she pretended to be a racist white you know, college student, you know, her fellow peer, making terroristic threats against other black students, you know, just to kind of drum up some drama. And I mean, it caused a firestorm. And it turns out like she just manufactured the shit. And I'm like, why? I don't understand why folks need to do that. I really don't. Like, there is a lot of examples of stuff happening to folks every single day that you can use as an example if you need something for your narrative. But why manufacture the shit? And that to me, it lessens any other legitimate claim, because people are going, oh man, is this another hoax? You know, because they have, and now they're justified. Like, this justifies people doing that. People should always be skeptical now. I'm not saying just believe everything, but definitely now hyper skepticism is warranted because of something as publicized as this. And it's crazy because now, you know, I'm not sure, there could have been any number of rapes, any number of murders, any number of whatever, you know, manpower that was dedicated to this that's now been wasted for, you know, for this hoax because of what he wanted it to get some more publicity. Like, I don't know the motivation, but it just cheapens legitimate causes anytime anything like this happens.
Well, you know what? I don't know how I feel about that, because like there are false accusations of rape, for instance, but that doesn't mean that there aren't real victims of rape. You know what I mean? And I would have to see more statistics. Like, somebody like sending me to a website that has fake hate crimes reported. That's one thing, but giving me an understanding of how many of the crimes that are hate crimes that are reported are fake, or, you know, are found to be false. Because I know with rapes, for instance, when a woman accuses someone of rape, there's a small amount of those are actually fake. You know what I'm saying? The majority of those are actually have happened, or you know, the police aren't saying that she lied about it. You know, that type of thing. So I would have to see like a comparison. You know, how many of these hate crimes, you know, is this a small percentage that are fake, or is this, you know, half of the hate crimes? Because then I can make a better determination on whether I'm believing most of them or not. You know, and right now I tend to believe a victim. Somebody comes to me from this guy's situation. He's all beat up. You know, he says this happened. He says, you know, it was two guys. I got a surveillance camera. It looks like two guys are walking away. I'm going to believe him. You know what I'm saying? Now, am I going to be, this is good police work for you to, I think, to go deeper in and to say, okay, let's see if we can verify this happened. And that's kind of what gets all fucked up, is that they caught the guys. Because if these guys, you know, went to Nigeria and never came back, that's probably what they thought, then we wouldn't be talking about this. But these guys, you know, came back. They got these guys. And by them getting them guys and doing good police work, now these guys aren't even perpetrators no more. They're cooperating witnesses. They say that these guys aren't even suspects anymore. So that shows you the police don't even believe it's fake. Believe it's fake right now.
Yeah, I think, like you said, I think you're not assuming that someone's just going to outright lie, and then even in lying, create a story to lie about, right? That's not, you just don't think someone's going to actually do that. But yeah, when you start to see now what would be the motive of them lying, what would be, then, you know, it just adds to and now you actually have the guy saying, listen, this is what this was. He paid us to do this. You know, it's horrible. It really does just cut away. So.
Yeah, but you know what though? But I think there's got to be a nice balance. Like Drag was saying, you got to have a nice balance of being skeptical about the claims but taking care of victims, because
I agree.
Because like a lot of times, a lot of people usually complain that when women falsely accuse men of rape, that very few times those women are prosecuted. And people will say, well, why aren't those women prosecuted for filing false police reports or something like that? And generally the reason why they don't do that is because they're afraid that a real victim would be afraid to come forward, because they would be afraid that they would be. So they would say, okay, let's let those false allegations. But I think now, what do you guys feel about that? Do you think all false allegations should be prosecuted?
I think if it comes to find out that you lied about, because I mean, and of course, going back, because I believe biblically, the Bible talks about that. It talks about if someone comes to accuse you of something and it's found that they were lying, they're supposed to get the penalty of what they was trying to get you the penalty of. So,
what are you going to rape the guy? I don't know. You're going to rape the woman. You're going to actually rape her? I don't know. What are you telling me here?
So if I said, hey, this brother, raped somebody, but I'm lying about it, you know, or if I'm a woman saying somebody raped me and it comes to find out they didn't rape you, right? Well, the penalty for rape in the Bible is death. You'd be stoned. So the penalty would be, if you're trying to get somebody else the death penalty, you would get the death penalty.
Now come on, you got to honestly think that's a little extreme. A false rape allegation is the death penalty. That's a little extreme.
But just think about it. If you know that that's the penalty, right? Nobody's gonna play around, because hey,
of
I'm
course,
not
if I know the penalty for jaywalking is death, I'm not going jaywalk. I'm talking about but come on, let's be realistic.
I'm not saying jaywalking. We're talking about this is capital punishment, right? Rape, that's something going. You get years. So that's what I'm saying. She should. If false accusing, you should get some time for that, for false accusing.
Yeah, but you brought up the Bible and you know,
well,
she should get murdered. You like she should put her to death.
I'm saying in a
little extreme.
Well, I'm just saying in the sense we're talking about, you know, as far as being walking in that president, when that's the rules, right?
Okay.
I'm just saying the same penalty in which the other person was going to receive, you should receive that penalty. So whatever the penalty is in today's society for rape, that should be the penalty of her being for falsely accusing someone of rape as well.
And you're talking about 10 years in prison for a false allegation too?
Don't lie.
That's a heavy penalty to pay.
Women,
I don't know.
Don't lie.
I think something like a criminal record, maybe
someone
6 months
can die
in jail.
from a lie. Think about this.
Something light.
How many people die? Think about how many people die from a lie.
Okay. Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah.
I'm lying that those people went and beat me up. Now me and all my cousins gonna ride, right? Mm-hmm. We going bang on them. And I was lying. I was mad because I wanted that girl, whatever, and he got her. And now people are dead because of a lie.
All right.
We already know as far as our people, how many.
That's a different story, though. Now if you're talking about people actually died because you lied, we're talking about a whole different story right now.
What's the old lady who lied about Emmett Till? Who lied about who? Emmett Till.
Oh, the woman who yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Right?
Yeah, I know.
Dead. He's dead. He got beat up and died from a lie. She admitted that it was a lie.
I know. I agree. People can die. People can get.
So that's why.
But I believe if we find out that you lied and nobody got hurt and you're like, all right, that motherfucker lied, you know, my first thoughts aren't, let's put him in jail for 10 years or let's give that person. It's kind of like, okay, you know, that person should pay some punishment, because let's not forget though, because the argument, I think in the criminal justice world, the argument isn't about, it's about the next victim. Like the next woman who's raped and she's in a situation where like a priest raped a little boy. And then she finds out that, hey, Janie over there, she lied and they put her to death. You know what I'm saying? And you talking about a priest raped you? Nah, you know, because they say you lying, you know, you going straight to hell because they're going to kill you for it. Or guess what? They're going to give you 10 years in prison. So you got to make sure that if you say it, well, then you're thinking about, well, how did it happen? Well, next thing you know, it happens usually in private. It's my word versus his word. He's a priest. I'm a 10-year-old boy. You know, the reason, and this is the reason why they don't want to make these false allegations something, because a lot of times these allegations are just he said, she said. You know, so the fact is that they'd rather people come forward and then try to suss out the lies through a process, and that's what I think is the only thing we can really do. You can say we believe you right now, and if we find out that you're lying, or we find some credible proof that you're lying, then that's a different story. And the penalty should be something light. It shouldn't be something super heavy, because you want to encourage the next victim to come forward, understand if we can't corroborate your story, then you know you'll be okay.
Well, if you subscribe to that,
well, yeah, well, I do.
That seems more logical than, you know. I think if people know there's a penalty for lying, people won't. You know what I'm saying?
There should be a penalty, but death. You talked about you said put him to death. Put him to death.
I said the measure in which the person that was going to get accused, that's the same measure that you should receive that exact penalty, so that you understand what you was going to cause that person to go through. Because that was your intent. You intended for them, whatever it might have been. If it was 10 years, you intended for them to do 10 years hard labor. You need to do those 10 years hard labor for even trying to do that to me falsely. That's crazy.
MP, we have a question in the chat. It has to be a felony eligible for at least a year in prison, doesn't it?
For what?
Actually, it did not specify. So, Mr. Pluto Dog, please elaborate on what you're asking about.
Are they saying like the crime? Like I think he's trying to say like the crime itself.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I'll wait till he rephrases it. Yeah, because I'm not sure.
Well, I'll just say this: in every jurisdiction, it depends on how they treat it. Some jurisdictions, number one, you have what they call prosecutorial discretion. So prosecutors, even though, like for instance, here in the city, I think here in New York and a lot of the places, it's actually illegal to file a false police report. So if you file a false police report and you know it's fake, usually on the bottom of that police report, it'll have like a penalty statement. Like it'll say, if you sign this, they'll make you sign something. It'll say like, if you sign this and find out to be that you're lying, you could spend up to a year in prison and have some type of fine or something like that. So you can file a false. So if you file a false claim, the prosecutors can prosecute you for that. But generally, I know when I was a prosecutor, they didn't do that. They would say, okay, well, we understand this is a false claim, we understand this, but they wouldn't prosecute the person for that. Number one, because it's going to be hard to get a jury to prosecute, and number two, to do it. And number two, you do want other victims to come forward, even though you can't maybe, even if you can't substantiate their claim. That it's difficult, because a lot of times victims think that law enforcement not being able to substantiate your claim, in other words, being able to find actually evidence that you've been assaulted, is the same as you're lying, and they're not. You know, a lot of times you'll investigate and there will be nothing else, and then what'll happen is that you'll say, okay, well, since there's nothing else that we can use to say this claim actually happened, then that then a lot of victims think that since the police, like, they won't arrest the guy because they was like, well, we just don't have enough. Victims, for some reason, think that the police think they're lying, and that's just not the case. It's just because of the way the process and the system is set up. If you don't have enough evidence to show that this happened, or if some of the evidence isn't clear enough, then that's not going to move forward. Not because they think. And I've had that happen a couple of times where, you tell a victim you don't believe the victim is lying, but you just don't have enough evidence to hold the accuser accountable. So.
All right. So, Mr. Pluto Dog elaborated. It has to be a felony eligible for at least a year in prison. He's talking about for making the false attack claim.
Oh, but again, that all depends on what jurisdiction you're in.
Jurisdiction. You're right.
It all depends on what jurisdiction you're in. Some, maybe different wherever you're at. But listen, so let's move forward because it seems like nobody believes the story anyway. Our next thing is our man GMan. Now, Tzur, you've had some experiences with GMan, so go ahead, tell the people what's been going on for this past week.
Well, let's preface this right now because I did a mini broadcast on my show to let people know, hey, Tzur's going to be back and he's going to give his unfettered, unabashed opinion about what he viewed. Now, we didn't tell him what to say. We didn't prime him, at least I don't think so, in any way to say anything in particular. He's giving his impression of what he saw. All right, so we kind of know what the response is going to be and that sort of thing. So we're letting everybody here know we're letting him speak from his experience as someone not attached to this community as to how effective GMan really is in his Black Hebrew Israelite ministry or whatever he thinks he wants to call it. So please go ahead, Tzur.
Go ahead, Tzur.
So first I'll say, before last week and coming on you guys' show last week, I hadn't heard of him ever, so that in itself, I was just like, okay, who is this guy? And then when you told me to go do my homework, check him out, I heard of him. And in my initial, in just watching, I watched like 2 or 3, and I watched some of the short ones on first to just get a sense, okay. And then I tried to watch like one of his, I guess I would say in depth, one of the longer ones, but I could never really get through one of the long ones for multiple reasons. But I would just say I don't think that his approach is ever going to be effective. And, even though he has what I guess some sense of a zeal for what he believes is the truth. And I don't know. I don't think the brother is going to be effective ever unless he changes a lot of things about himself and his approach. And he just, I don't really have words for him to try to describe him. I don't have words. I just think that his approach, it definitely just comes off as more like just wanting attention, more like wanting to be noticed, that type of thing. I can't see anyone taking him serious. I can't see anyone ever taking him serious in his whatever his quest is. If it's to, I don't know what even his end goal is, but the brother just seemed like he needs attention or wants attention.
Right. Now, is there anything? Or GMan usually goes around and saying that he has the best arguments, that his arguments never been defeated. From what you've watched, can you even coherently just like what can you like what's any of his points? What is he trying to say when he makes these calling him arguments and giving arguments a bad name? But
he talks about a lot of different things on his channel. So but as far as the Hebrew Israelite, as far as that, he he pretty much quotes a lot of the just standard things that modern Christians, someone who subscribes to modern Christianity would bring up. The scriptures in Galatians are scriptures, a lot of New Testament scriptures, but not necessarily. He don't have a lot of scholarship from what I've seen. I'll say that he just don't have a lot of scholarship, and so that's what's. No one's gonna take him serious. That's what I mean. And his approach with his verses, no one's ever really gonna, because he's just off to the side with his camera and he's saying, yeah, here I am with such and such camp, and you'll always see they're not really paying him no real attention, because when you come up like that, you're not trying to have a real conversation. You're just trying to be seen or make a scene. And so, you know, brothers who are out doing the work, it's serious. So no one's about to really entertain you when that's your approach. If you really come in with a real dialogue and say, okay, what's your understanding of this scripture? Well, I would say it's this. And let's go in the scriptures and let the word speak for itself. Let God be true and every man a liar. He don't deal like that. And so I think that's why I haven't seen, from the ones I have seen, I haven't seen any real dialogue, a real conversation with him in these groups. It's just him scoffing for the most part. And so, that's not really trying to combat.
I definitely would agree with you. From what I've seen, he doesn't seem to want to actually get into, let's say, the meat and potatoes of the scripture to talk about the hermeneutics. He mentions certain scriptures that he believes that Black Hebrew Israelites may have misinterpreted. All fine and dandy, but I've not seen him ever understand how Black Hebrew Israelites interpret it and then explain or justify why his interpretation is the correct one. He just kind of asserts offhand that they're wrong. Well,
exactly.
You know, that
well,
it is,
you know, and that's the irony, because a lot of people say Israelite, they just parroting what they heard. They do a lot of parroting. And you have a lot of Christians who do a lot of parroting, honestly. And he would fall in that category. He knows a few scriptures. He thinks he has the understanding, which I've never seen him do a breakdown of his understanding of these scriptures. He just says, this is it. If you see a Black Hebrew Israelite, ask him about this scripture, and then he doesn't give you anything so he's putting you on a ledge, because he's telling you, ask about this scripture, and he don't tell you they're going to say this, but they're wrong because of this. He doesn't even help you in what I've seen. So he's setting a lot of people up to get their feelings hurt, to get embarrassed if they care enough. Like that anybody who actually knows the scriptures is they're gonna find themselves embarrassed, because he's not if he's so say like a teacher, and you know, he's not saying anything that's gonna help them win an argument at all. He's setting you up for failure. If y'all follow him and believe his ways to be true, I'm just letting y'all know he's setting you up.
That's some strong words. That's some strong word. Well, hold on for a second. Can we play a clip so that people know exactly what Tzur actually watched, and so others who are watching later kind of have a taste for GMan's style of argumentation, as he calls it.
Well, what a surprise! I have a clip queued up right here.
So goody.
So all right. So we're gonna play like 5-6 minutes of this clip of GMan versus the Black Hebrew Israelites. Enjoy.
God has sworn. And what's sin? Sin is transgression of the law.
So why are you breaking his law then?
You eating crash shrimp, lobster, and pork, guess what? You gonna die by the ocean.
I eat pork, I eat lobster, and I eat shrimp, and they taste very good. But the law also says that you are not to wear two different fabrics, and just about all of you are wearing two different fabrics.
People got the misinterpretation of the word grace, man. Grace is used in a time of need. You think you can just
what does grace mean?
Eat crash shrimp, lobster, and pork. The Lord ain't shed his blood for you to eat crash shrimp, lobster, and pork, and to smoke weed and commit adultery.
I agree with the smoking weed and the committing adultery. You're right about that. Show me in the Bible where it says I can't eat pork, though. And then I'll show you in Corinthians where it says I can.
Let us therefore come boldly to the throne of grace. And that's what we're doing out here week in and week out. We're coming boldly with the spirit of power,
you guys were just quiet for like a better part of 45 minutes when I was asking you questions. That's not being bold. That's being scared.
So that's GMan in a nutshell. It's not being bold, that's being scared. So this is convincing to you. This is a changing. Has anybody ever met anybody that GMan is converted from being a Black Hebrew Israelite? He's been doing this for how many years? Has he got how many people has he changed?
He's actually been going after them his entire YouTube career, as he likes to say. I can find early videos of him first addressing them along with his videos towards atheists. He just sort of took a back burner because atheists gave him more attention. Imagine that. So he started focusing more on atheists than Black Hebrew Israelites. It's only recently, within the last 2 or 3 years, that he's actually tried to focus more on them, and even at one point joined a group of individuals known as Soldiers of God, and then, within them Shield Squad. Until he was unceremoniously removed from both of them. And so, but Tzur, you are actually familiar with Soldiers of God, if I'm not mistaken.
A little bit, not dramatic, not too much, but yeah, I know of them. I'm not you know, I haven't had any interactions or anything like that.
Hold on. There's actually a pretty interesting question that came into the chat real quick. It says it's about why quote? It's this guy Stephen Bowden, and he says, why quote the New Testament to a Hebrew Israelite? They don't believe the New Testament at all, do they? So is that true? Is that a misconception, or do you guys believe the New Testament's no good?
Yeah, I think that's just that's somebody who doesn't understand the full spectrum of the Israelite community. So you do have brothers who are would be called Old Testament only brothers. They only subscribe to the Torah and the Tanakh. But then there's us, and I would say largely a lot of us who subscribe to the whole Bible and the belief in Hamashiach Yahweh Shai, which the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. You know, so it's you have both sides. You have some who do only believe in the Old Testament, but not all of us only subscribe to the Torah and the Tanakh.
Interesting.
Yes, so it's not one homogenous group, and I think that's what I guess a lot of folks should understand is that within kind of the Black Hebrew Israelite spectrum, there are different shades, different camps, and different belief sets, and that's
exactly
something we kind of appreciate as much as we do for Christians, and that's something that
kind of how you have the I guess it's not really like denominations, not really. But that's kind of the best way to kind of, I guess, give a, you know, an understanding of how it, you know, just like they would have, you can't assume every Christian is a Catholic, right? So you can't assume every Israelite is only Old Testament only, or you can't assume that every Israelite believes in Christ. You can't assume, you know, a lot of different things. So you kind of just have to know who you're dealing with. That's just the importance of having a conversation, knowing what do you know to be true or believe to be true, right? I don't know that if I don't ask you. I would never, to me, that's very, very kind of prideful to just assume that I know what you believe. That's just like you guys. There's so many, before coming on to you guys' show, I really went and looked. I'm like, okay, what is really an atheist and that whole thing? And I'm looking, there's so many, that goes into so many different things, right? It just spreads and spreads and spreads. And, you know, you can't assume that this person literally only believes this one thing, because there's so many different nuances to it. And so it's all about your understanding. It's going to kind of determine, you know, where you are.
But as a descriptor, though, like when someone says Black Hebrew Israelite, we're talking about a group of people who may have different beliefs in certain things, but there's, you know, for them to be identified as that Black Hebrew Israelites, what's that identifier then? You know, if it's not if it's not the religious piece of it, you know what I mean?
The main thing it's definitely is from the nationality standpoint and the belief that the Bible is true. So, but when you're talking about the Bible, right, that might just be for some just the Old Testament, because some believe that the New Testament was corrupted, and, you know, that whole thing. That's where the nuance goes. But the sole thing that we all agree is we all know that we are the Israelites, the people of the Bible, because we fit the curses and we fit the different things that have gone on in the Bible. It relates to our people, the prophecies. I'll say that the prophecies of the Bible, we relate to the prophecies of the Bible, and that's how we identify and know that we are the Israelites of the Bible. That's definitely the one solid common goal, understanding that we all have.
All right, I'm putting questions from the chat in the Zoom chat here. If you guys are wondering where I'm getting the questions from, I think Shamiyam had asked the question earlier about Torah-only Israelites. So just in case you haven't answered this already, what does he think of Torah-only Israelite?
What do I think of them? Yes. I think that they would probably just need to sit with some brothers who can show them that Hamashiach Yahweh Shai is prefaced in the Old Testament to come and do what he did in what's considered the New Testament. It just would have to be a sitting down and getting clarity. A lot of those brothers, from the circle that they're in, that's kind of what they know to be true. And so I think they just need to get with brothers who are more scholarly in the Bible and in history, to be able to show them how the prophecies in the Old Testament did line up and make sense and was fulfilled in the New Testament, so that they can kind of get that understanding. But ultimately, again, the Most High puts his spirit on who he puts it on. So you can sit down with brothers and they still might not get that understanding, right? Because it's not meant for them to get that understanding. So right. I still love them. They're my brothers. It's just I don't agree.
You think they're mistaken though?
Yeah, I think they're just they're still missing some pieces to understand fully that the Messiah has come and he is who the world calls Jesus Christ, no other person.
Right. Okay. Another question for you, sir. Has he heard of the Torah Nights before?
I want to. It sounds familiar, but I haven't. I can't say I really understand or know who or what that is.
Okay. I'm vaguely familiar with them. I'm actually subscribed to Judah Nazareth. He is a very animated individual. I'll give you his YouTube page later. He's
we usually are.
he's I've watched Captain Tazariak. I've watched a few others, right. And I would say as far as being animated, he is way way above. Yeah, very vitriolic. So that's
I always want to see new people though, so I'd love to. Yeah, send me a link.
Yes, I will send you to his channel. Let's say so. And someone responded, that's a larger variety between Black Hebrew Israelites, between Christians, more like a gap between Jews and Christians for BHIs, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We have another question about Tzur explaining blackness to Jesus as Lord. No, we're not going to do that. Jesus as Lord is a little learning impaired, so we don't have enough time for that on the show. So maybe next time. Another question is, I heard somebody say that Jews are wrong because they follow the Talmud, not just the Torah. What's that about?
Yeah, so the people who call themselves the Jews today, yes, they do subscribe to the Talmud and those practices and a lot of the tradition, which is ultimately Satanism. That's what it ultimately is. So and so that's why, the Bible speaks of those that say they are Jews, but they are the synagogue of Satan. That would be those people claiming to be the Jews that aren't the Jews. Revelations 2 and 9.
Okay. So, there is something that I wanted to kind of go back into our questions about when we were asking, you and I were engaging about genetics, and we were saying, well, how do we know these things to be true? But as you were talking, you said you were doing some searching too, and so I think it'd be only fair, instead of just putting you in the hot seat, you said that you had watched a few of our videos to learn a little bit more about us, and I would imagine there aren't too many atheists in Lafayette last time I checked.
If there are, I mean, I have, Lafayette is predominantly Catholic, definitely
Catholic.
Christian. Yeah, it's a Christian environment. So, yeah, I'm sure there are atheists. Like our mutual friend, I don't know exactly what she is. Like I said, the last time we talked, I don't know where she is on the spectrum of belief when it comes to whether she believes that there is a God or whether she doesn't know, right? That's agnosticism, right? Or if she don't, I don't know where she is. So we and her we have to catch up and do lunch. So I can exactly know where she is, but she was one of the few people I know that I would think, the closest thing I would know that's all the way outside the box of the average person in Lafayette. They believe in some capacity that there is a God in some sense, right?
Right. I think she right now, because we actually did have lunch a few months ago, and she, from what I could tell, is a deist. And she wasn't really familiar with that term either. But from what she described, she more so along the lines of what my wife believes is a form of deism, where she does believe that there's a higher power, but not necessarily the one that interacts with the here and now. And so
I got you.
I think that's where she is. But again, I would have to check in with her because her beliefs sometimes change. Yeah. But like I was saying, so how about this? How about we take a role reversal? You put us on the hot seat because Nate and I are both atheists, but there are different shades of that. So feel free.
Well, so I wanted to know. One of my questions definitely was, so as far as I saw something that talked about, I forgot what it's called, but it had to do with about being free or understanding that we're absolutely free, right, in totality. I forgot what that term is called, but that was a form of atheism. I was like, I wonder, do they subscribe that we're just absolutely free? And so, you know, because there's no God, there is literally no consequence of nothing, that whole type of ideology. Or let me just ask y'all, just so, what do you believe to be true, Nate, and what do you believe to be true, Dre?
Nate, you can go. It's kind of a loaded question a little bit.
Yeah, I guess so. But I mean, I would love to just understand your worldview, right?
All right, no, I think I can give it to you in a nutshell. My worldview is this: is that I don't believe in any gods or deities, and I've not closed the door to them, but I just don't believe in them. The reason why I think most people believe is through education and indoctrination. You know, I believe most people believe in their religions based on culture and who they know and where they're around. Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes it's different. You know, there are, for instance, there are Christians in predominantly Muslim countries like Saudi Arabia and so forth. So it doesn't always hold true, but 90% of the people or 95% of the people in Saudi Arabia are Muslims. And same thing here in the United States, the majority of people here are Christian. So when it comes to what I believe it's true, I believe that's the limitations on my belief about what's true is just the limitations on me being a flawed human being. You know, my senses can be flawed, my reasoning can be flawed, and I have to work everything out with the people around me to find out, you know, what's actually true. And, you know, I hold to truth to be provisional. You know, something could be true today, but if more information comes that tells me that that's incorrect, then I'll have to change my opinion on whether that's true or not, or whether what I believe is true. So, you know, even though I don't, and I also want to make it very clear, I don't think all claims are the same. You know, like for instance, if you claim that you have a pet dog, that's a different claim than if you claim that you had a pet dragon, you know? And the type of proof and evidence that I would suspect from you would be different for both those claims. You tell me you have a pet dog, you just saying that may just be enough to fulfill that burden of proof. Okay, well, you got a pet dog. And it doesn't really have any consequences to our relationship or to our conversation if that was a lie, you know what I mean? But if you told me you had a pet dragon, then there's a different type of connotation that I've just not experienced that. I've never seen a pet dragon. I'd want to see it. Even if we're not talking about dragons, we can talk about something, so you have a pet white shark, you know what I'm saying? I'd want to see that too.
Just to say it's something so almost untouchable that now I need to really I need to see pictures of you in this dragon. I need to know what's his diet. I need to.
Well, if you want me to believe it's true, you just have to provide to me more than just your word. And especially when, you know, because don't forget, when it comes to the religious question too, there's so many people saying there's so many different things are true. You know, you're telling me everything that you believe is true, but I can get you 6 billion people that says not only what you're saying is bullshit, but it's totally wrong. And you're probably going to you're probably in the worst position ever. You know, there's a billion Catholics out there who are going to say you're incorrect. Now, I don't want to fall into the fallacy of an argument ad populum. In other words, the most people who believe this is true. So I'm not saying that there's true, but right now, when I'm saying the position that I'm at now, I got so many people saying they have the ultimate truth. And if I was either I can do one thing, I could believe everybody based on who they are, you know, that these are good people and they what they know what they're talking about, but then I'll be believing contradictory things. Or I can believe they all are wrong. And until somebody provides me some sufficient evidence that I can hold one over all the others, then I'm just not going to believe any of them. And that's that's my position right now. If you tell me a God exists,
that's logical.
And you just tell me that, just, you know, as a claim, and the only evidence you could bring to me is a 2,000-year-old book that, you know, says some things that were written by people who had a totally different moral structure and, you know, society that we have today, then brother, I just don't believe you.
You would say that. So you would say that. You would say that the what's considered the prophecies of the Bible, you wouldn't say that those things have actually happened or come to pass. From what you know, I don't know how much of the Bible you do know, but you would say that you haven't seen those things manifest themselves to where you could say, man, the Bible is true. Like it said this and that actually happened. It said that and that actually happened. That's what you're saying. As far as prophecy of the Bible, you would say the Bible just seems to be like a book because nothing of it has manifested itself.
Well, the Bible, when I read the Bible, I think the Bible, from my reading of it, doesn't read like a science book, or it reads like an historical account of people who were trying to figure out the world with the tools and technology that they had. You know, who was the first man? Adam. Who was this? You know, and they did an interesting job, but they were limited by the technology that they had, and you can see that all throughout the Bible. Even their moral code was limited by the technology they had, because here in a society today, and I think this is one thing, and education has helped me a lot. And when I'm saying, like, in our society today, we have a penal system, we have a civil society where our prisoners, you know, we don't have to kill everybody for, let's say, rape, for instance, or simple theft or anything. You know, it's not, you know, if you're gay, it's not, you know, we're not telling people that they have to be killed for these minor offenses. I think most of the 10 commandments, or one of the 613 commandments, if you violate one of those, the sentence was death. And the reason why is because back then they didn't have prison systems and prison guards, because people didn't, you know, collect taxes, and these were nomadic people who lived in that type of society. So what they would do is, if you broke the rules, we would excommunicate you from the society. You know what I'm saying? Either you would survive alone in the desert, or we would leave you out there, that you would come back and maybe harm our society. So the penalties had to be harsh, because they're not going to put you in a cell, because putting somebody in a cell, you got to take care of them, you got to feed them, you got to do all this other stuff that takes resources from the community, and we have a community that's already limited on resources. So I think if you look at the Bible for what it says, I am not saying there are no true things in the Bible. The Bible has true things in it. Egypt was a true place. You know, there are true things in the Bible. But there are true things also in the Torah. There are true things also in the Bhagavad Gita. There are true things also in the books of Islam. But that doesn't mean all the mystical claims are true. And that's my stance on it.
Okay, so I'll just ask you one thing, and then I'll give it to you, Drac. So one last thing about it. So as far as I get it, the Bible is a history book also as well. So I'm with you on that, right? There's a certain way you're supposed to read the Bible to get the mysteries of the Bible, and maybe that was never presented to you. But I'll say, so as far as, like, you know, the claim that Israelites like to deal with, right, when it comes to nationality, the fact that the Bible said that a specific people would go into slavery on ships, have yokes of iron on their necks, their children would be sold to another people, they would serve gods of wood and stone, all these different claims that prophets say would happen, and it happened to a specific group of people. That's, to you, that's coincidence, or that's not enough proof to say that you had a pet dragon? It's more of, you would say that's more of coincidence than reality. So
we're saying that the claim here is that,
because remember,
the Bible,
this is 5,000 years ago.
Okay,
this is Moses in the wilderness, before boats, right, before ships. Okay, it's down to a T. It's not just you're gonna go to slavery. I'm not telling you how it's happening. I don't know how it's gonna happen, but I know you're gonna go into slavery. Right, slavery was a concept. So for him to do something that's very vague to just say you're gonna go into slavery, but to pinpoint specifically the type of slavery, in which manner, of what type of people would come and take you, et cetera, really some particulars and specifics, that still would count to you as just, you know. Well, either way, I mean, it's no wrong. I'm just,
go ahead. No, I'm just going to say, I think maybe our difference here would be on what we consider specifics. I believe when you read the Bible, you can, number one, I think the Bible is a great book, but it's a poor book for understanding, because anyone can make the Bible kind of say what they want it to say, you know. And I think that's why you have so many different interpretations of the Bible. One person will say this verse in the Bible means one thing, and somebody else will say it means something totally different. And then that's where you get all these different people having these different understandings of the Bible. So what you're saying is convincing evidence of this prediction that occurred and being very specific. See, something specific for me would have been like, there's a country that's going to be called the United States of America, and these people would be sold in slave ships to them, and this is what's going to happen. Like, that's specific enough to say, okay, well, damn, you got a pet fucking dragon. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But if you're telling me I got to read a book and I have to interpret it a certain way and interpret these ambiguous verses that kind of leads to saying ship but really didn't say ship, and then we also have the problem of, hey, you know, even though the transatlantic slave trade, where people were sold into slavery in that way, was one of the ways people were sold into slavery, there were other types. There was other instances of slavery too, where people were kind of shackled and things of that nature, and they happened not to be black people. You know what I'm saying? This happened. I agree. This was a frequent occurrence with people, you know, especially when people started being ship-bearing civilizations. So, I would say this: it's, you know, if you're telling me the Bible supports this claim, then I would need to, and then I would just need to see the verses, and I would need to see verses that are very specific, that are saying, yes, this is what's going to happen to these people, and this is how, and if it's something that you're going to, because usually what I get is, here's what the verse says, and it can say 1 + 1 = 2, and a person says, well, it really doesn't mean that. It really means God said Jesus is Lord and you got to be saved. And I'm like, no, I only see, it only says 1 + 1 = 2. They be like, because you just ain't reading it right. That's where I'm at right now.
Well, I would, you know, when it comes to, especially like a chapter like Deuteronomy 28, that's kind of just clear cut and dry. That's not even, I don't think it's subject to interpretation at that point. I mean, and we'd have to sit down and look. Of course, we don't have enough time on air, but we could definitely, if we just sit down and look at it, we can look at a verse, and then I'll ask you, you tell me what's that saying, right? And we could just look at it. Maybe we can do that one day.
Yeah, I'm all up for it.
Cool, that'd be cool. All praise.
Go ahead, because I know you said you wanted. I wanted to let you.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes, Drag. So, what's your worldview? What do you believe to be true?
I believe, man, my world revolves around pecan pie, women, and science. So, I'm kind of averse to the term worldview, just because it's so much you know, in our little community. But I don't think that my world is really encapsulated by one or two things. If I had to name things that were important to me, it would be the progress of society, finding finding equality within people of our demographic, finding prosperity and edification. Is definitely one of my goals, and then furthering all of society, all of humanity through you know, medical science and, you know, through research, through those sorts of things. So I'm heavily grounded in empirical evidence. My standard for belief for many claims is quite high. One of the reasons why I'm not a huge fan of religion is due to the fact that I do require quite a bit of evidence for things, even certain mundane things like how good a movie is, or you know, how good a game may be. I want something that I can sink my teeth into, a metric or standard by which to measure it, because that is simply how my mind works, and that I find more often than not that things that are intuitive are being, you know, misinterpreted as things that are correct. And so for me, the more something is intuitive, the more skeptical I become. So in that way, I've almost trained myself into being less gullible than the average American. So it's my worldview is like kind of a bit more complicated than a few others that you may encounter, because I try to remain skeptical, and the more that I feel as though that I am in tune with a belief or an ideology, that's a key for me to kind of reel myself back and to check myself. And this Jussie Smollett thing is a perfect example of that, actually.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that's an amazing space to be in. You should always want to prove. The Bible talks about proving all things, right? So you should always re-examine yourself and make sure what I believe to be true is the truth. Like you know, like you're saying, I think that's actually an amazing space to be in. And I would agree with you that what's religion. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I agree that that's a very that can be a very detrimental thing. I think honestly, the biggest thing that's kind of the bad thing that happened with the Bible is that it became a book of religion, because in all actuality, it's really a book of heritage, a book of culture, a book of history, Again, now I subscribe to it's only for specific people. It's not for the world. It's not a all-inclusive book. And so, I would say that, if you were able to kind of look at it in a different sense, I think maybe a different lens from the lens that's traditionally given, you might be able to see how it really does help with, even in science. There's a lot of things that goes hand in hand with science and with archaeology and with history. Like the Bible really is it's a beautiful book, man, when you look at it in truth and not under the guise of how it's been given.
It's funny. Well, hold on for a second.
Go ahead.
I almost called you That's interesting you say that. When you say it's a book of science, now there's a question that I have asked many a believer, especially when it comes to Genesis, that this is one of the sticking points when we start talking about how relatable the Bible is to reality. And if you're reading Genesis literally, some things don't add up. And one of this question is that if God reached into the soil, and I should say soil, reached into the afar, as it's translated into the dust from the earth. We know the composition of the earth's crust. And just in case you didn't know, it's about 90% of a compound called silicon dioxide, and that's made of silicone and oxygen. 10% are various things, but mostly it's carbon. Well, the interesting thing about carbon is that carbon gets into the ground by decay. If God reached into the ground before there was death, there would be no carbon in there. But we know that as humans, we are carbon-based life forms. So if the Bible is correct, why are we then not made of silicone instead of carbon?
So, man, that's a very, that could be a deep question. So now you can't read Genesis literal. That's for one. It's being very metaphoric and allegorical. But I will say, on Genesis 1, when he's talking about the different days, he created the animals and stuff before he created man. So there would actually be death, because there would have been a full day. In the Bible, day is 1,000 years, right? So there would have been 1,000 years of animals living and dying by the time he would come around to man. But
even your explanation right now, there's a lot of interpretation going on in there. Like you're saying, a day is 1,000 years. You're saying this, it seems like you're reading because, like, for instance, I know answers in Genesis. They believe it's actually 6 literal days, and you're saying it's 1,000 days, and that's what I'm thinking is the issue. Is that I think. If this is the way you're interpreting it, 1,000 years, then that where's the support for that? You're saying there's support for that in some other scriptures. Where's the support for that?
I'll give you a scripture. This is 2 Peter 3:8.
So in the New Testament now.
In the New Testament, yes.
Okay.
If my phone would act right, because it's acting up right now. Give me 1 second. Okay. It says, "But beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day." So, once a person who's looking at the scriptures prophetically and understanding the code, because it's spoken in a code. That's why it says in Isaiah 28, precept upon precept, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little. That's how you get the understanding, the mysteries. If you read the Bible front to back, you get the history of it and you understand the timeline. But when you start reading it precept upon precept, and that's when you start getting the mysteries and the understanding of the Bible. And so that's one of the things we know how to apply timelines and periods. A day is as 1,000 years, 1,000 years is as a day. So it's a day to the Lord, but it would be 1,000 years in our actuality or our sense of time, because with God, there's not really a sense of time like ours. It's not in the same capacity, right? Because he's outside of time in a sense. He's before and out. He's before there ever was time. He was, but we have time because we're created beings, right?
So that's the term year, though. Okay. Yeah, but the word year used there, and I can't remember the whether it's Koine Greek or Hebrew or whatnot.
It probably was Koine, but yeah.
Yeah, but so what calendar did they use to? Cause I don't think they did use a 365-day calendar at that point in time.
Well, they couldn't because it was invented by the Romans. Right?
Yeah, so the Roman calendar is not the Hebraic calendar. The Hebraic calendar is a lunar solar calendar, right?
Right.
It's literally a different thing, but when you're speaking of 1,000 years, you're still speaking of. So it's not that might not even go into literally 1,000. It's if you go, you'd have to go do the mathematics of okay, how long is a lunar solar calendar year, you know, and then do the numbers, right? But I was just kind of generalizing to give the picture that it's not literally a day. That's what I was.
Right. Okay.
It would take too long to get into. If we start getting into specifics, of course, I don't want it to be about. You know, I know that's
no. It's actually fine because I actually like this because we started at the beginning and a day now is 1,000 years, and I'll even grant that it's 1,000 years for the sake of conversation. And the complexity of actually, you know, what year we're talking about, because based on when this reference was made, there was no Roman calendar. The calendar we're talking about didn't really represent a year. But even with that,
well, I think it would have been the Roman calendar would have been in because that was during the time of Peter and them. That's during the time of the Romans.
No, but I'm talking about the day. Oh, all right, it was during the time of the Romans.
Yeah. But I don't think Peter is referenced in the sense of the Roman calendar
because
he would have probably been sticking to the lunar solar calendar.
Let's say the time of Jesus, with the time of Peter, that would have actually been before Augustus Caesar, right? Because Augustus Caesar was the one that converted everybody to Christianity, right?
Yeah, that came a little.
And
bit,
and like so the month August is actually named after Augustus Caesar. So if we just take it from that point on, that month of August couldn't have been in the calendar that Peter's talking about because Augustus Caesar was after these stories and events even happened, right?
Yeah, right. It wouldn't have been.
So we couldn't have been referencing that calendar.
He wouldn't have. It wouldn't have been, you know, the month August. It would have been. I don't know. I can't remember. I'm not that astute of knowing all the days of the month.
Well, July is Julius Caesar. August is Augustus Caesar, I think.
Yeah,
so those 2 months wouldn't have been there.
That's naming it from from that calendar standpoint, right? By the name of that calendar, but you know, the months have names as well. You know, like the first month of the year is Adar. You know, so things and it goes and goes and goes. So I'm not familiar with that's why I say I don't remember what August would have been in the Hebrew calendar. I'm not that.
But I want to grant you the 1,000 years because I know some people, if you look at the Greek, some people say the word year is actually eon. It was a mistranslation to the King James version. So eon is different than year, and so there's a lot. So this term, you know, the one day, for instance, which some scholars say is eon, which some scholars say is year. It's not concrete that's actually what that even means. But I'll grant that in the King James version. I'll grant you the day is 1,000 years. But now, even going into it just a little bit farther, now we have other anomalies, especially in Genesis. We talk about the sun before the days before the earth, and so no matter how, the sun before, not the sun, the earth before the sun.
The earth before the sun.
So now if you have that, then how are you counting years? Is this just like a metaphorical year? You know, like now, if you're talking about that's 1,000 years, how is time being
measured in
if you don't have a sun?
I got you. So now when it comes to that, honestly, that's actually in a space as of right now I couldn't begin to speak on. Since I'm not gonna try to speak on anything I don't know.
Okay, that's fair enough.
I would say as far as trying to say, okay, when was the actually official first day of create and trying to line it up, that I still have to kind of get more astute on.
No, not the first day of creation. It's just that if you're telling me there was like 3 days before there was a sun. So how I'm just saying, you know,
right? Time before the sun and the moon is what you're saying. Was there time?
Well, how would you count it? Because we know we count that time based on the Earth rotation around the sun.
That's the calendation. That's how God gave us the sun and the moon for calendation. But it's not to say that time didn't exist before we had calendation. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing with that. Yeah,
those are tools to measure time, but they're not what time is. They don't dictate that this is time, right? That's the measurement. That's how we know how to look and help give a measurement. But before that, who needs to measure time before the sun? Who needs to measure time before man, right? Realistically, when you look at it in that aspect. there's no real need. But once we're here, he tells you this is how you measure time. Use these tools that I've given you, the sun, the moon, and the stars. This is going to be for you to be able to measure the time, know what time of year it is, know what, you know what I'm saying, so that we can keep the holy days, etc., etc.
So as a measure of time, so we do know that there were 3,000 years we're talking about before there was even a sun, and then the sun was put in, so we can measure 1,000 times around the sun at that point. So the sun was a way for us to be able to track time. This is why we have the sun. I'm trying to understand it. Yeah.
The sun, the moon, and the stars.
I don't know. This just doesn't seem. It just doesn't seem convincing that we need a calendar to the sun. It just.
Would you not say it's literally about the same logic, or you'd have to have the same measure of faith as believing that we're spinning around at a certain amount of hours and we're going around the great contract. That I don't even know that whole science spiel of how the Earth is spinning and that's spinning around the sun and the sun is spinning around the galaxy and the galaxy. It is the same level of faith, in some capacity.
No, well, I disagree with that. Like there are certain simple experiments you could do. Like they knew that the fence of the Earth was round. Back when the Greeks were there, because you could do. There's simple experiments you can do, especially with the rotation of the Earth. You can. It's interesting because I think science has progressed to the point where, for you to actually are you saying you actually physically need to be in the spaceship to go up there and see the sun, the Earth going around the sun? Do you not? Or are you that skeptical of the scientific truth that we found? Or I'm trying to understand, because you're saying that we have faith. I'm like, yeah, I have faith, but I know how that works. I do understand the Earth rotates on its axis. I do understand how the seasons
what I'm
happen.
saying is okay, nobody's. I'm saying we can make claims, but that goes back to what we're talking about being able to prove things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Until somebody can go around the great contractor. To make that statement is kind of, you know what I'm saying? I have to take you on your math and on your, all what you have and accept it as truth. And I'm kind of just taking you on it because I haven't went and experienced it for myself. I didn't go and,
But that's like saying, but on that logic, I would say that China's not a real place. I've never been to China. It's not a real place. And I'm just going on, and my faith that China exists is the same as my faith that a dragon exists. You know what I'm saying?
So you should go to China, right?
Yeah, but I don't need to go there. You know what I'm saying? I don't think my faith in China is the same as my faith in a dragon. You know what I'm saying? Because there's a lot of evidence for China, and that's the thing I'm talking about. We build pictures, maps, not even with that. We build knowledge off each other. You know what I'm saying? We're a species that specialize in things. I specialize in my job. You have a particular job, and you specialize in that. Right. And
I agree.
And our collective knowledge has brought us to this point. I don't know if you've heard that term where we what is it, on the shoulders of giants? Einstein built all his stuff through Newton, and Newton built his stuff from someone else.
Right.
So nobody's going to say well, all that stuff is bullshit because I wasn't there to do it. No, we're building knowledge, and the knowledge that we've gotten today is how this thing works. And so I think it's disingenuous to say it's the same level of faith that I would have in some mystical book 2,000 years ago. This is tested, you see rockets go up, and you're right. And I've learned the math. It's a lot more empirical than that. And just to say it's faith, I just don't agree with that.
I understand from your viewpoint. I understand.
What you were saying, Drag?
Yeah, Drag. Yeah. We done took off.
Yeah.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm actually still playing this game in the background, but no. We keep coming back to this topic of basically I call it, well, not me, the epistemological issue, the issue of how we think, how we come to these conclusions from different perspectives, and the different burdens of proof that one can use to come to this or any conclusion for that matter. And it was something that Nate and I were talking about, because there is a whole field of study dedicated to something like this. And I think a part of why people are more in tune with certain beliefs or certain positions is due to how they come to conclusions. So like I said with my example, in order for me to believe that the Bible is true, well, I understand the Bible, how it's constructed. For the most part, it's an anthology. It's a collection of books from many different authors, written in many different languages, and that there are certain parts that are to be taken literally, and there are certain parts that you don't take literally. And correctly, you identify one of the more allegorical passages. Now, to juxtapose you with our friend GMan, he believes that every single part, even the songs of the Bible in Psalms, are to be taken literally, which I'm not sure how you take a song literally, but he'll find a way. That may have something to do with his understanding of Bible misunderstanding. So that is because he has a completely different epistemological basis for his understanding. And so that viewing things through that lens is why he comes to erroneous conclusions. And so, but that's not to say that people who don't have my epistemology come to wrong conclusions. It's that anyone's epistemology
of course,
has that capacity to be wrong and to not having, I guess, a more robust system of discernment. And I think that it is interesting when we actually break things down, that when we begin to talk about whether or not something is true, like whether or not the earth is spinning while also going around in some ellipsis around with other heavenly bodies, and then they mention certain experiments, to which you basically retort that, well, if I don't understand those experiments, how are they useful to me? And so,
well, I'm not saying that I'm useful. I'm saying I'm still going in a measure of faith to believe it to be true until I test it myself. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that it's not true, and I'm not saying that what others have experienced, you know what I'm saying, like they haven't done the research. I'm just saying, if I'm taking your word, that's a measure of faith, because if I didn't go do it, that's a measure of faith from what I understand faith to be. Now maybe I'm using the wrong word in, maybe my wording might be wrong, but to me that's a measure of faith, because I haven't experienced it for myself. I don't know it to be true for myself. So that's anything outside of, if I literally did it, that's a measure of faith, right? Because you did it. You said you did it. I'm taking your word on it.
Right. And so the faith in this case, I don't think we're using faith differently. I know in some cases, speaking of certain religious people, they have religious faith, and so that will will differentiate it. But here we do have a certain measure of faith. When I take my car to a mechanic, I have faith in his ability. When I take my when I go to the grocery store, I have faith in the people who package and process the food, that they've done it right. But then when it's interesting though, but when we come to certain things, we don't sit and test our epistemological basis. We don't query these things at all. Like we just kind of take it and accept it. I would ask them, so what is the demarcation between things that you kind of are ready to accept just for the sake of accepting, versus the things that you are wanting to test further?
So with the Bible being the premise of pretty much how I base life, it would, anything that goes into my understanding of the Bible, right? And if I don't have understanding of those things, now I have to go look. I have to sit back and say, I believe that to be true, but that I didn't really, and now it's to go in and do the research. If it's something that is going to matter, of course, like you say, I should just believe, which I don't necessarily believe that, our food we have the best food system in the world, but it's just to say, right, something simple like that. Let's just say I'm supposed to just believe that, they're doing the right thing. Our food we have, the best healthy food, and our government is making sure that we get that in, that we're taking in only the best food. I should just, right? Opposed to if I come to a certain place and I believe, people don't necessarily have my best interest at heart, that, there's a reason why they would not do it. So now I'm going to start to look into that and see if, what is the truth behind this?
Right.
That kind of dictates it. If I answered your question,
somewhat, because I think it's interesting, because if we go back to let's say our topic from last time, where we discussed about the origins of individuals, such as how we determine someone's African, or how we determine someone European and all that kind of stuff. You know, short of you becoming a geneticist, you know, just how much research are you willing to put in order to, you know, challenge your current beliefs?
How much work am I willing to? I'm definitely very interested in it. Honestly, I really am interested on the genetic side of it, but genetics doesn't trump prophecy, right? So all the things would have to line up. That's kind of how I am.
That's interesting.
Because I believe, you know, we still have finite understanding, right? That's just like, even in science, there's things they can't explain yet. So that goes back to kind of Nate's viewpoint in life when he said, at the moment, right, it can be this, but if new evidence arises, then you see what I'm saying? So with me, the two has to blend and line up. That's kind of what's, because I could be coming to the wrong conclusion because I'm missing something, maybe. Speaking of, as far as trying to find out the facts, right? Whereas because I subscribe to there is a God and that the Bible is his word, I know he didn't make no mistake and he's not lying. So it's not to say I'm trying to find evidence to only prove what God is saying, but it's to say the evidence is probably going to prove what God is saying.
Sure, and
you know,
but it would more than likely align because you believe this is the truth. So you would expect the evidence to align with it. But one of the interesting things that you had kind of put out there, and I'm just going to paraphrase, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that, you know, as far as genetic evidence, because we don't know everything, there's still there's some doubt that's being cast. And so is there a certain point in our knowledge and science where you would have pretty much full faith in it?
Realistic, honestly, at face value, it would take a lot, bro. Just because from my studies of certain things, there's a lot of things that is disingenuous. You see what I'm saying? And I don't think there's a lot of disingenuous people per se, but I think when you start getting up the ladder of how we ended up having certain understandings or we know certain things to be true, I think a lot of things is more so have come from an agenda based ideal of certain things. And so, you know, I think it just, I would have to do it for that. All I can say that, you know, certainly I would have to do it for myself in a sense. I would have to, if you're trying to convince me this is this, okay, let's talk about this. Show me how this works. Okay, let's, you know, and I'm up for those type of things. I'm up for, because I really am, like, especially like the genetic thing, I really am up for understanding it, right? But it doesn't, it still don't trump the word of God.
Yeah, so to me that's interesting because it's for this standard, so for something I would consider empirical evidence, and I guess in my perspective, empirical evidence, something that I could demonstrate to a third party, would be on a shadow of a doubt would trump any anecdote or any story or any prophecy, because anyone can assert anything and anybody can believe it.
I
have evidence,
and
for
that's what I'm saying.
If
the evidence, because of my faith, give me 1 second. My phone about to die. Let me see if I can. Let's see. Okay, sorry about that.
It's all right.
From where I stand, the evidence should line up with, you know what I'm saying, that truth. That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. That's where I am in my viewpoint of the real facts. If we start diving and dipping, is going on that. Now I might be missing something in my understanding in certain things. That's why I say I'm not the most astute, you know, brother in these scriptures all the way to say I understand everything about the Bible to understand how science would play its part in it, right? I'm still learning myself, but I'm definitely willing to learn and understand, and it would be in the understanding on both ends. From what you could, if you could show me something, I'd be like, man, I seen it. I can't refute something that I've seen with my own eyes or experiment I've done with my own hands, right? That's not magic. How did I do it, right? So I'd have to accept that. And then that's when I'd have to go and see, okay, what is the Bible saying about this thing?
So it almost sounds like you would use the Bible to interpret like an experiment that you would conduct.
I'm saying the Bible has an answer for everything. That's kind of what I'm saying. Okay. I would believe that whatever could be proven, the Bible would also be saying that. Any real truth, the Bible would be saying that.
So hold on. Can I just ask you a real question just on the basis of what you just said?
Okay.
If you did have some evidence that clearly contradicted what was in the Bible, which one would you believe?
If it clearly contradicts what's in the Bible?
Yes.
I mean, I would have to go off of real life, what I'm seeing, right? I just have never known anything to real life contradict the Bible. That's why I couldn't say that there's something that I couldn't say that could actually happen. That's from my experience.
But just in a theoretical understanding, if something did happen,
hypothetically,
if it did happen, it could happen. Yeah, I would have to accept. How can I go against what I'm literally looking at, what I'm literally experiencing?
And that, but just to be clear, that wouldn't invalidate the whole Bible, but that would invalidate that one piece of it, right?
Or it might invalidate our understanding of what it's saying, right?
It almost sounds like kind of an ad hoc reasoning there, because you, on the one hand, I understand it, I have this position, but then enter the evidence, my understanding is wrong, not the actual text is wrong, and so that would then but afterwards you kind of rationalize it to say, my understanding was flawed. Well, then if that's the case, then your understanding of other scriptures would then also be flawed. But if you're using that as a basis for how you interpret information, then it almost seems as if you could come to that conclusion one time, every other premise that's based on your understanding then comes into question.
Well, so it's to say, if say something would prove that something in the Bible was off as far as what we preach and say this is truth, and then now we got another fact say this, we'd have to go back and look. Are we really looking at, is that what the scripture is saying? Because again, some of the scriptures is by way of prophecy and by the decoding. So we could be off in certain understandings, right? But I would say the Bible in itself is true. That doesn't necessarily mean I understand all the truth that it's saying.
Yeah, but so for here, and I think that this is another interesting point, but you're asserting outright as a brute fact that the Bible is true. And then you're saying, I will find a validation for the claim. How do you know that it is true offhand without first having the evidence to conclude it?
Well, I would go off the evidence that I do have. If the evidence that I do have that's lining up with it, right? That's it's true. It's saying a thing, and I can see it in reality, in real life.
The thing is, you've already accepted it as true beforehand, but then you're using that premise to then assert that other things are true.
No. I wouldn't. I don't know who would accept something as true without having an experience of the thing. I didn't just believe the Bible was true. Okay, so watch this. I grew up Christian, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so now that was indoctrination in the sense of I was a Christian because my mom was a Christian. That's all I knew, right? But once the Bible was shown to me through a different lens, right? And everything that's being explained, I'm looking at scripture upon scripture. Because like in Christianity says a lot of modern day, I don't mean to say Christian, modern day Christianity makes a lot of claims that the Bible doesn't make. And so, but people outright believe it, even though that's not what's really being said, right? So that's believing the Bible, and the Bible's not even saying that. That's just, I don't even know this Bible, but I'm believing it's true, right? But that's not even really what it's saying. And so, but now that I've actually read the Bible and understood it in the correct lens, the reason I can believe it to be true is because I can see the things that I'm reading. That really happened in history. This is the archaeology for it. Here's such and such. I can go and find the things it's going with what it's saying. So that's what's continuing to make me say, yes, the Bible is a true book. And on top of, so that's what's building my faith to know undoubtedly, okay, the Bible is a true book. I may not understand everything in it, but it's a true book.
But just
I've seen enough things in it to make me have to accept it as true.
Maybe this will just clarify in the sense of this. when I asked you the hypothetical we were talking about, where if you had some brute fact that you've experienced and you verified this is true, and the Bible says this is false, and you said, well, if this is saying it's true, you were like, well, you have to accept your experience. You have to accept, I've seen it, this is true, and it seems the Bible is false. And then you took that and you said, well, I couldn't say the Bible is false. What I can only say is my understanding what the Bible actually said is what's actually true. Well, I'm talking about this.
I said the Bible was,
this
I wouldn't say.
No.
I would say, if I said the Bible was false, I missed.
No. This was the hypothetical. This was me putting. Remember the hypothetical I put up? I said you had something that you know to be true, something, and the Bible contradicts it. The Bible says this is false. You're saying this is, your experience is saying this is true.
And I said I would have to accept what I'm experiencing, right?
Yes, as true.
But then I finished it by saying I don't think that's not something that could happen.
Yes,
and so now that's going into my point of right now, that because the Bible is true.
That was the point of the hypothetical, was just to show that you said even if you experienced something that was contradictory to the Bible, the way you would bridge that gap is by saying, is the first thing you mentioned, the drag, is that you would then have to change your understanding of what the Bible really meant. Right? Because you're saying the Bible's always true. Right here, you have this conflict. So, in other words, instead of what you've read before, you're not saying the Bible's not true. What you're saying is, my understanding is poor. Now, the Bible really means what I'm really experiencing. So it doesn't seem like the Bible's predicting anything. It's saying, it seems like what's going on is that you're having these experiences, and as you say they're true, it seems like the Bible, you'd go back and say, well, it's actually true. This is actually true. So I read this wrong in the Bible. You can do that with actually everything that you experience. You can just say, well, since I know this is absolutely true at this point, I can go back and read it into the Bible to say, yeah, the Bible's actually right about this
point.
Saying,
but if the Bible is, I guess that would go into certain things, right? Because I mean, we're making it kind of like simple, plain, but in reality, we're talking about things that would be either prophetic or allegorical, or so. That's what I'm saying, in the sense of, if it's something outright plain, thou shalt not kill, like something that's a straight scripture, I haven't seen a straight scripture go against real life ever. But when you start getting into allegories and you start getting into, the mysteries of the Bible and trying to really understand what's what, that can be misinterpreted. You see what I'm saying? Because you have to understand the mindset of the Most High and how He's talking through His prophets, et cetera, et cetera. So we're talking on a plain level, so to where it can kind of seem like, as I'm just trying to do whatever it takes to make the Bible. I'm saying my experience has shown me the Bible is true. When you start talking about allegories and deeper things, our understanding of what that is saying could be off. And that is the importance of, like the Bible says, proving all things. So that's why I can agree with you that if I'm experiencing something, that's real life. Now, my take on, so what does the Bible say on what I just experienced? I might have taken that in the wrong manner, because if it's coming off in an allegorical sense or in something that's not outright and plain, right? That's where it can be mistaken. I can be mistaken in that, and so that's all I'm saying.
Yeah. So my I guess overall or overarching issue here is that, how do we then determine the truth value for any claim in the Bible? Because if we're saying that you have to come from a particular perspective to ascertain this truth value, then what does that say about the merit of each claim, independent of a perspective? So if you're an atheist and you're a Christian, if the Bible makes a claim, no matter where you're coming from, that claim can either have evidence to support it, or it can be rejected, right?
Depending on my viewpoint, so you're saying my viewpoint determines whether it has merit?
I'm saying that someone's perspective, like the void of your perspective or your position, if the claim is true, it would have evidence to confirm it. That's independent of anybody's perspective.
I agree.
Okay, so I I would generally agree with you on that. That is definitely true. It doesn't matter what I think about something. But when we have this conversation, we talk about how certain claims are validated or invalidated and our trust in it. It seems as though, you kind of like default to your perspective rather than the evidence. Because when
I mean, it can come off as my perspective, of course, because I'm the one speaking it. But that's why I'm saying the Bible, I would say the Bible is president. It's its own. So I would say the Bible is the truth. Now, whether I understand all of its truth, that's where the perspective comes into play, right? If I can see something and be like, that's going completely against what I'm experiencing in real life, only because I'm not completely understanding its truth. So that's kind of where, I guess, because it's not the fact God has come down, right, as a being and said, this is true, this is, we have to, it's because of the fact of I have to figure it out. I have to, figure out what's actually being said. And I guess that's where it can come to, if I don't study enough or want to try to know enough, and I'm only going off what I do know, I can look at it and be like, nah, the Bible's fake. And I'm not saying everybody should believe in the Bible. And I'm not saying, I would subscribe our people, Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans should believe in the Bible and should use, everything that they've learned as far as what's really true, what they've studied, and you can prove it to be true. If you look in the Bible, it's gonna be there. It's gonna be in there. That's what I would say.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting position, because so when I hear that, well, the Bible is true, but I may not understand all the aspects of it, there seems that there's kind of a gray area there where your understanding kind of like it almost halts itself. But then that's okay, because you've already accepted the Bible whole cloth as true. And for me, that's kind of an issue. Like, how would I be able to state that while having this, I guess, realm of I guess I don't want to really call it ignorance, but just because I don't want to come across as
faith. But it's faith. No, okay. You could. So it's what the Bible calls faith in the book of Hebrews. It says, in order to, can I just pull up? Can I use the scripture?
Yeah, of course. Feel free.
Cool. So this is Hebrews 11 and 6. But without faith, it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. So you first have to you would have to believe in a God, right? You'd have to believe in the God of the Bible to even begin to have the logic that I have, that the Bible is true and that all its truth can be proved in real life. So if you don't even, you know what I'm saying? So to not even subscribe to that, that's where, that's where it's going to kind of be, because like you said, you're more of, first I need to see all the empirical evidence for me to say this is the truth. And I'm more of a person of, I guess my faith is just a little bit greater, in that aspect, that I believe that there is a God, and I believe his word is true, and I believe that all of that truth can be found in real life.
It's interesting, just like from and this is just from my perspective. If I was to tell you something like, I think your car's going off. But if I was to tell you something like
cutting it off,
before modern science, people believed like something, the moon, like when they saw the moonlight, they believed that light actually came from the moon. They didn't understand that the sun reflected, the we see as moonlight is actually a reflection of sunlight off the moon. Right. We knew, before they knew whales were actually mammals, they believed whales were fish. They believed things like insects had 4 legs, but when they really have 6. And the Bible, and these are claims that the Bible makes. And these are things that we know, like slugs melt. Slugs and snails don't melt. They, they have, what is it, the lubrication that they have, or whatever they leave behind. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, but I'm saying these are claims that the Bible makes that we know that just are not true, based on what we know today, we know that the information that they had back then, these things seem to be true. You know, if you want to cure leprosy, for instance, there was a process to doing that. And now that we know that we have more information, we know those things aren't true. It seems like, from your perspective, you would say no. Those things in the Bible, they're not false. What you'd say is we just read them wrong, and those scriptures have to be interpreted in the right way. Go ahead.
Well, some of those things I would say, because I'm not aware of you know, like the different things, like so I would just say I would need to see the evidence that it goes opposite of what the scriptures are saying. If the scripture is saying something outright, I would have to believe, you know, so like I say, if it's something plain, let's look and see if it's something that, you know what I'm saying, when you certain things, again, I don't know, that's why I say certain things, certain things I need to see it. Like what you said about that level of faith, picking and choosing what I could believe you had a dog, but I might not. Just your word is not enough to believe you had a dragon. So,
so some of these things aren't even that fantastic. Do you believe that, you need to kill a bird to cure a disease, like use like the bird's blood?
In today's time, I would say no. We have modern medicine. The Most High has given us that understanding to where you don't, right? Not in 2019.
Right. So what about in the past? Has bird blood ever contained some type of disease-fighting agent that you're aware
of? I haven't done that kind of research, so I couldn't speak on it.
Right. So, and here's the issue that I'm saying. In Leviticus 14, for instance, they speak about using, and for this.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, the ritual.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. So, but you're saying that the Bible is true. You've stated that from the onset, but you've said that you are not aware of any healing properties of a bird's blood. So
that I'm aware of.
That you're aware of. So how are you then asserting that the Bible is true when you're not even aware of like a claim such as that?
So
or the validity of that claim.
I would have to go do the research on as far as what made this all happen in the book of Leviticus, right? So the Bible is true. That doesn't mean I'm only 2 years in understanding what I understand so far, but I haven't literally tested everything yet. I'm not saying that I'm not gonna. I believe that you should prove all things. So because I believe that scripture, I'm on assignment to try to understand everything it's saying. I can't answer everything yet. So as far as healing agencies within bird blood, that's not something I've done the research on yet. I can research it for you, and definitely I can get on that and try to have something for you, in the next weeks or something to come.
Actually, I am being corrected. That was part of the ceremony afterwards.
Right. That's what I know it's part of the ritual. I didn't know that it was. That's why. But I was gonna go read it, and I was gonna present something to you because I'm that type of person. If somebody's if you're asking about scripture, I'll definitely do my best to always answer anybody who asks of me. So, but I don't claim to know the whole Bible and know every. But I knew it was concerning ritual. When you said that, it kind of threw me. But I was trying to figure it out. But
Yeah, no, it's not a problem. Well, the overall point that I was making is that if
I get what you're saying. How do I claim the Bible to be true?
Yeah, how do you say that it's true when there are these gaps?
That goes back to Hebrews 11, what I just read about the faith, right? Having faith.
Well, but the thing is that because you actually said that if you did something that's obviously wrong, like if I say bats or birds, that's an obvious mistake. That's an error. Okay. And the Bible, it makes that claim, and it makes that now it could just be a misinterpretation. Somebody, maybe a copyist ever, people. But I think it's Leviticus. I forget what chapter it is, but it's talking about things that you can't eat, and it names the birds. And one of those birds, and it's supposed to say bats, and bats are in there. And we know bats aren't birds, so even though it may not be enough to break anyone's faith, because that's not what I'm trying to do, but I'm just trying to say that obviously is an error. That may be an error of the person who wrote something down. It may be just an interpretation of, hey, we're going to call everything that fly. But the thing is that we'd have to now make that inferential leap that we have to read that right. Because it's not right what's being said there isn't right, but we have to read the rightness into it. And that's what I'm talking about, interpretation.
But when you go into even in that's Leviticus 11 you're referring to. But when you go in, and then it goes back and it covers, because it says, this is the law on clean and unclean animals, birds that fly, etc., things like that, right? I get what you're saying when you start talking about if you want to be specific and say, okay, yeah, bats aren't birds, but it tells you that it's talking about things that fly. So that's how, you see what I'm saying? So it is kind of generalizing. And I guess that's, like you say, if you want to make that an argument to say it's not being, 100% accurate.
No. If you saw that in a science book today, if I gave you a book on science, this is a science book, it's written by the best guys, and in the first page you read it said bats are birds.
Right, you're gonna say they're crazy, right?
I'm not going to say they're crazy. I'm going to say, well, this book isn't as great as I thought it was, because everything else in there might be right, but this is wrong. This right here is a mistake.
Yeah, scholarship.
But I can also say it's not a mistake. I can also say they went right there to things that can fly, and birds is really allegory for things that can fly. It says bird, but it just really means fly. And you would say that I'm being crazy, right? You would say, well, listen, man, you're kind of reading a little bit into it right there. It says bird, it doesn't say fly. So, but again, I think you're right in a point that maybe I just don't have that faith that I need to have, that where I say this is the truth, and I have to make sure everything that I experience fits within that truth, because if it doesn't, then my truth is some way not true. You know what I'm saying? Because that book is telling me what's true.
Yeah, it's a level of faith. That's literally all I can really. That's the beginning of it. You'd have to believe first, right? And again, everybody's not going to subscribe. I would never say that it's for everybody to subscribe to it. So.
Well, amen to that. But actually, we're up on our 2 hour mark.
Oh wow!
Drag.
I can talk to you cats forever, man. Y'all some cool cats.
No, this is fun, and I think it's always better to have an understanding of why people believe what they believe. I honestly believe I don't believe in any gods, and I believe gods more than likely don't exist. But if somebody asks me to prove it, I'm not able to prove that gods don't. It's just like I'm not able to prove that fairies don't exist. But I keep myself open to the possibility.
So you know what I'm saying? So, can I just ask one?
Sure, go ahead.
Oh yeah, feel free, man.
So, and either one of y'all. So like with what is it? Teleology. That's intelligent design, right? So y'all don't believe like phi and Fibonacci and all those things. Y'all don't believe that those things are like, these are fingerprints. Y'all think that, again, that's kind of just part of the.
I'll let Drag take this one. Drag is the evolution guy.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
The Fibonacci. You talking about the sequences, the Fibonacci sequences?
Yeah, like Fibonacci and phi and psi and all those things that are just, you have to use those things, even like in your science, right? You have to use phi and psi and pi and
Oh, well, yeah. There's symbol. Well, the.
But I mean the mathematical formula, like those mathematical expressions, they come up over and over and over, even in biology and things like that, right?
Right. Yeah. There's certain. Well, those are the names for certain concepts that we use. I mean, they could be literally a pi. It could be literally PIE, and it served the same function. There's no real significance of it being named that.
I get what. Yeah. The emphasis is not on the name. I meant in the sense that these are things that, when you start digging into it from a scientific standpoint, they show themselves over and over and over and over.
Right. You have certain sequences,
and you wouldn't say that that's part of. You wouldn't say that that kind of alludes to intelligent design.
Because so when you say intelligent design, well, there's only one measurement of intelligence that we know of, and that's humans.
That's ours, right? Okay.
Yeah. So do you have an example of a non-human intelligence that we know of?
Right. I would have to agree with you on that. I would have to agree with you.
So that's because I actually that's kind of my area.
That's actually kind of one of the things I was thinking on. I was like, the crazy thing about our experience, the human experience, is that when it pertains to God, it's like we only have our own self in a sense, right? If we're depending on how you're dealing with it, to say, because I think that this would be perfection. So now when life doesn't show that this is a concept or this is a thing, then we can go and say, see, either there can't be a God, because then how are these imperfections from our viewpoint of what's perfect or imperfect? Whereas if there is a God, we don't know what he deems as perfect and imperfect in a sense, right? In totality.
Right.
And
like
so
if
I think sometimes that's kind of the kind of sad thing, I think. But I think it's just all part of his plan, of course. That's why certain people is going to believe, certain people's not going to believe, certain people. I think that all plays part in the nuances of who ends up being who is his chosen, who's not his chosen, et cetera, et cetera. But I just think that I thought that was kind of, I was like, man, that's interesting that, we only have our perspective, you know what I'm saying, really.
Yeah, that almost sets it up though, as the people who are, I guess, more gullible in a sense are the ones that will be spared, but the ones who are more naturally skeptical are the ones who will suffer. But that kind of goes into a bit of like determinism. Well, if God that presumably exists, and then he made you with a predisposition to be more skeptical, then he's ultimately setting you up for failure. And so that's kind of the flip side to that argument that I'd see.
I mean, I would agree though, and I mean that goes with the Bible. That's why he said he has his elect people. Everybody's not, you know what I'm saying? Everybody's not getting the kingdom of heaven. Everybody's not. That's why I say it's not what modern Christianity kind of, that whole lens is just that's not the correct lens to understand the Bible. In reading the Bible, you understand that everybody's not chosen for it, and so because of that, it kind of does go with that yeah, your life is going to be for the experience for you to either believe or not believe, right? And then in believing, that's a whole different walk within itself. Once you do believe, you got the believers that's not gonna make it. You got the believers that are gonna make it, because God chooses who He chooses. That's what the Bible says. You know what I'm saying? I have compassion on who I have compassion on. So if you subscribe to it, you understand that. And so that's why when people who don't subscribe and don't believe and you're okay with it. Now some people who I guess like the brother GMan and other people who they have a problem with that understanding idea, right? I guess that's why they be kind of hell bent. I do believe me being an Israelite, I'm supposed to speak to my people. That's why I always tell y'all every time before we get off, you brothers are Israelites. I pray that y'all would come to the understanding of the Most High God and repent. And that, but if y'all don't, I'm not. You see what I'm saying? Like, I'm not gonna bash y'all, hate y'all, look at y'all like, man, I pray that He put His Spirit on y'all, and that's the most I can do, and live an example like to where hopefully you would want to learn more of it. But people who start going off, off the deep end and all this extra stuff, that's just being extra. That means you don't know the Bible. That's the problem. You don't know the Bible. That's why you're going into all this extra stuff.
All right, man. I thank you again for coming back and having this conversation with you. You are always welcome back. We look forward to having more conversations with you. Nate, you want to add anything?
No. I thought this was really great, and thank you for coming back. This was pretty fun. Today we actually talked about a lot. We talked about a lot. We started with gay rights and false claims till getting to the theology. So I think we ran the gambit tonight. Drag, you gotta get your camera back on, man. I'm just looking at a blank screen here, man. What's going on?
Man, you give me some camera money, man. That government shutdown ded not give me any type of funds for this month.
What?
For my GI bill. Yeah, that's what ended up happening. Yeah, so because I was like, why am I a couple of $100 short? Oh yeah, the government shutdown. So yeah.
Oh shit. So are they gonna? But they're gonna hit you off with the back pay, right?
I hope so, because I definitely could use that money. I had to reach into the savings to pay some bills, man.
Oh my God.
I can't be like some folks on here and get up here and just make stuff up and tell folks I'm going to be homeless and lying and all that kind of stuff. Because unfortunately I got too much integrity for that. So
wow, man. Yo, but I'm sorry to hit you. And it's funny because I would have never known. You never know who like a government shutdown will hit. You know what I mean?
Who is affected? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, listen, people. Hey, listen, everybody. Thanks again for watching. We had a great show tonight. Big up to my man. Hey, tell them where people can find you at if they want to find you, or you just conversate with you. Or do you have a Twitter handle, or you strictly on Facebook? Like what's up?
Yeah, I have a Twitter, but I'm never on it. I never could get in it. I tried to get on it, man. I couldn't do it. But I am on Instagram and Facebook at Tzur Ben Israel. Like I said, I'm not teaching as of now. I'm still learning, so I don't have any YouTube page of me teaching anything or anything like that. So, but I'm definitely down for open dialogue, questions, comments, anything like that. Tzur Ben Israel on Facebook or Instagram. Definitely.
Spelled the way it's on here, right? TZUR.
Yeah, TZUR _Ben BEN _Israel ISRAEL on Facebook. On Instagram and on Facebook, it's just Tzur Ben Israel.
Damn, you got me scared up, man. It's like you ain't know how to spell your name. You're
yeah,
like,
you know. Bro, it's been a long.
There's a guy.
I'm slipping on.
You're in the witness protection program. Oh, what name did they give me? What name did they give me? Yo, type it in the chat or something, man, so I can put it in the description bar. But listen, thanks again for Drag, for Emperor's getting married February 30th. I don't know if he's gonna put on his podcast or something, but you know, we'll see what happens. That's like what, 15 days. Hold on, February 30th is not even a date. Maybe he's joking with us on Facebook. And I'm like,
I don't know.
February 30th? Like he said he's getting married February 30th. So maybe that might be the joke. He's never getting married.
No, man. You said February. I wish you. No, that's a joke, man.
That's what I'm saying. It must be a joke.
I just thought about that.
It's gotta be a joke because of the leap year. I'm like, yeah, it could be February 30th.
Yeah, got you.
He got me got me for the whole night. I'm like, hold on, February 30th. Is it a leap year? They're like, just got to be added in. When they adding 2 days? But actually, they will be adding 2 days. But I'm not sure when. When is it? Like in 50 years or something like that? They have to add 2 days because it was like a little bit more. It's a weird phenomenon. But anyway, for Emperor Atheist, Dragnut, and Tzur, follow him on Instagram. Name is spelled like that. We're gonna put a link in the description, and we'll see you guys later.
Later.
Peace.
Wow.